Greetings everyone. Welcome back to Storytime Recaps. In this video, I'm going to recap one of the films from 2019, The Platform. Before we start, I hope your day be filled with sunshine and smile. Enjoy the story. A scene of a gourmet meal being skillfully prepared opens the movie. An elderly man named Trimagasi welcomes a young man named Goring when he awakens in a concrete prison cell. They are on level 40A. Trimagasi informs him, and they are in the pit. When Goring presses Trimagasi for more details, he replies that their meal will be whatever the people above leave behind. Goring sees countless identical cells beneath theirs when he looks through a rectangular hole in the bottom of the cell. He observes the same thing when he looks above. Trimagasi responds to Goring's question about how the pit operates by saying, "They eat," adding that 48 is not a bad level even though it can be easy or difficult depending on where you've been assigned. When Goring asks him how many levels are below them, Trimagasi responds that there aren't many now, but that number will drop in the near future. Trimagasi tells Goring not to call out to those beneath them, adding that those above won't respond either. Goring claims to have spent many months in the pit and that their stay at level 48 will last precisely 1 month. Then, a platform loaded with food scraps descends through the ceiling hole and stops when it gets to them. Trimagasi starts eating frantically. Disgusted at having to feast on food that 94 other people have already consumed, Goring declines to eat. However, he does find an apple that is perfectly intact, which he tucks into his pocket with the intention of saving it for later. Goring notes that the room is getting hotter as the platform descends. Trimagasi threatens to burn or freeze to death anyone who tries to keep any of the food, saying that unless Goring returns the stolen apple, the temperature in the room will rise until they boil alive. The temperature goes back to normal after Goring throws the apple back. In return for Trimagasi telling his own tale, Goring offers to explain to him why he is in the pit. Trimagasi questions whether Goring willingly entered the pit after he explains that he intends to stop smoking, and that he brought a copy of Miguel de Cervantes' Don Quixote to read. All prisoners are permitted to bring one personal item into the pit with them. Goring discloses that he consented to spend 6 months in the pit in exchange for a recognized diploma. Offended that he isn't getting a degree, Trimagasi admits that he is spending a year in the pit. The following day, Trimagasi relates his own experience. He saw an advertisement for the Samurai Plus, a self-sharpening knife, on television and decided to buy it after seeing one for the Samurai Max, an extremely effective knife sharpener. He killed a passerby by smashing and tossing his TV out the window, expressing his anger at having wasted his money on the Samurai Max. Given that the man was an illegal immigrant and shouldn't have been there in the first place, Trimagasi doesn't seem to feel bad about it. After staying on level 130 to previously, Trimagasi then admits that he is unsure of the precise number of levels, but that there are undoubtedly at least 132, asserting that no food can descend to such low levels. Trimagasi says he was still able to eat despite the platform being foodless, but Goring doesn't think he could have survived for a month without food. Trimagasi claims Goring's attempts to persuade those in positions of authority to restrict food are ineffective. Then, as Goring watches in disgust, Trimagasi unzips his pants and urinates on them while he is trying to deliver the message to those below. Goring shows him his copy of Don Quixote. Trimagasi answers that he brought a Samurai Plus. The following day, much to Goring's horror, a body falls through the hole, but Trimagasi seems completely unfazed. When Goring screams to the other cells, he gets no answer as to why they are not responding to the body. At that moment, the platform appears, bearing Maharu, an Asian woman who is bleeding and bruised. Trimagasi reassures Goring that he need not worry, adding that Maharu descends the pit once a month to look for her son. Trimagasi also reveals that Maharu kills her cellmate every month in order to increase her chances of being paired with her son in the subsequent cell rotation, and that Maharu is probably the one who pushed the body that fell earlier. As the platform lowers, the inmates on level 49 attack Maharu. Goring cries out for them to stop, but he is not heard. He is told not to interfere by Trimagasi. In self-defense, Maharu kills the 2 men and makes her way back to the platform, where she looks coldly up at Goring and Trimagasi before descending further. Over the course of the next month, the 2 men become friends. Trimagasi asks Goring one night if he thinks there is a god. Trimagasi asks Goring to pray for them after he doesn't respond, telling him that the gas being pumped into the room will put them to sleep and that when they wake up, they'll be in a different cell. The same question that Trimagasi had posed to him earlier is posed to Goring, to which Trimagasi replies, "This month, I believe." Goring wakes up in his bed, bound and gagged. When Trimagasi shows up, it becomes apparent that the two have been moved to level 171. Trimagasi acknowledges that he is hesitant to kill Goring and that he intends to spare his life for at least a week, even though he explains that hunger will drive a person insane and that since Goring is younger than Trimagasi, his meat is more desirable. From above, they can hear the cries of their fellow inmates who have found out which levels they have been moved to. A number of corpses tumble through the opening past them. Goring starts pleading for his life when he takes off his gag, but Trimagasi tells him their friendship was never meant to be. When the platform finally reaches their room, Trimagasi throws it in frustration because it is empty. He says that in 8 days he will start slicing Goring's flesh into strips, caring for Goring's wounds each time to prevent him from bleeding to death. Trimagasi responds that the ones above will be accountable, but Goring assures him that while the immigrant's death might have been an accident, Goring's death won't be, and Trimagasi will be held accountable. Trimagasi binds Goring for the next 8 days, despite the latter's vain attempts at freedom. Goring is informed by Trimagasi on the 8th day that it is now time for him to start eating his cellmate. Too tired to fight back, Goring sternly informs Trimagasi that he will bear full responsibility for his demise, neither the circumstances nor the prisoners above him. As Trimagasi successfully slices off a portion of Goring's leg, Miharu stops her while she is riding down the platform. Using a wine bottle, Miharu knocks Trimagasi unconscious. Then, using his samurai plus, he slashes his throat, releasing Goring, who stabs him to death. After Goring faints, he awakens to see Miharu slicing through Trimagasi's flesh, which she is using as food for Goring. Goring asks her what the name of her son is before she continues her ride down. She remains silent. Goring has a Trimagasi hallucination and uses Trimagasi's body to sustain himself for the next month. Trimagasi is the more civilized of the two murderers, but the apparition mocks him for the lack of decency and understanding Goring showed him. At the end of the month, when Goring is gassed, when a dachshund puppy wakes him up the following morning, he finds that he is on level 33. Ramesses 2, the dog's new cellmate, is a woman by the name of Imugiri. Imugiri calls him by name and makes fun of him for choosing to bring a book. In a flashback, Goring is seen being questioned by Imugiri about any dietary restrictions or allergies he may have had before his admission. It comes out that he smoked during the interview. Imugiri made it clear that he would not be permitted to smoke after being admitted. She then asked him what his favorite dish was. Goring replied that his favorite dish was escargot la bourguignon, which is snails with garlic butter. When Goring asks Imugiri if she is here to free him in the present, she responds that she is not and that, like him, she entered the pit willingly. When Goring informs her that people pass away in the pit on a daily basis, Imugiri explains that the place is actually known as a vertical self-management center. The platform shows up in their confinement. Imugiri makes the plates and feeds Ramesses while Goring eats, describing her strategy of feeding her dog one day and herself the next in order to ration her food. Goring warns her that she might unintentionally kill a child. Imugiri, who clarifies that no one under the age of 16 is allowed in the pit. Imugiri announces to those beneath her that she has plates ready for them. She begs them to eat only what is on the plate, then sets out comparable plates for the people below and instructs them to follow suit. The men on level 34 angrily explain that they are practically starving after coming from level 88. When Imugiri tells them that it is their duty to care for those who have been less fortunate than themselves this month, they become enraged and start eating as much food as they can off the platform out of spite. Imugiri keeps trying to reason with people beneath her every day, but her requests are consistently denied. On the 15th day, Goring angrily confronts the men and threatens to urinate on their food for the rest of the month if they do not comply with Imugiri's orders. Goring claims that was the only option, but Imugiri argues that she preferred to persuade those below rather than incite fear in them. Miharu shows up on the platform the following day, badly hurt and barely conscious. The platform descends as they tend to her wounds, and Miharu says, "It's cold," her first line of dialogue in the movie. Goring discovers that Imugiri's dog Ramesses has retained a piece of meat, and that the room's temperature is being dropped with the intention of freezing them to death. The temperature goes back to normal as he battles the dog for the scrap. While Miharu remains in their cell, Goring awakens in the middle of the night to find the two women engaged in a violent altercation. He breaks up the fight and learns that Miharu killed Ramesses, causing an upset Imugiri to cry. Miharu rides the platform down again the following day. When Goring tells Imugiri about Miharu's son's search, Imugiri responds that, as a single mother, she can't possibly relate to what Miharu is going through. While Imugiri recalls her interview with Miharu from 10 months ago, in which she stated that Miharu came to the pit by herself. She shares that she battled the illness for 3 years. She also discloses that Miharu is an actress, an orphan, childless, and that her ukulele is her personal possession. She mocks Goring for choosing to bring a book and makes racist remarks about Miharu before telling him that she has been sending people to the pit for 8 years and that she was not aware of the cruel conditions. The platform shows up the following day carrying an unopened plate of escargot et la bourguignon. This pleases Goring, but instead of finishing the ration plate, he puts 2 snails on each one. Imugiri responds that today is supposed to be Ramesses I's day to eat when Goring questions her about not eating. Then Goring tells her that since it's the last day of the month and they don't know which cell they'll end up in tomorrow, she should have something. Unfortunately for Goring, he wakes up in cell 202, defying Imugiri's previous assertion that there were only 200 cells in existence, and is shocked to learn that Imugiri has hanged herself and that there are still a great number of cells beneath them. Goring has hallucinations in which Trimagasi and Imugiri urge him to eat her corpse. He is so shaken by these visions that he declines and instead survives by consuming pages from Don Quixote. Finally, he gives in and uses the samurai plus that Trimagasi had left behind to slice into Imugiri. Goring finds himself in cell number 6, and his new cellmate is Baharat, a black man of religious faith who has been attempting to escape the pit for some time and is now positive he will succeed. Baharat mentions that 2 compassionate people helped him and were rewarded with eternal life when she tells the man and woman above them that God they consent to assist him. Baharat throws his rope up to them, and the woman urinates on his face as he starts to climb. Baharat, dumbfounded, lets go of his rope and almost tumbles into the hole, only to be rescued by Goring. Baharat refuses to eat, even though the platform is almost completely filled with food when it gets to their cell. That evening, Goring receives another visit from Trimagasi's apparition, who congratulates him on having just 1 month left before being released from the pit. By promising to make weapons to protect themselves from aggressive or renegade inmates who attack them, Goring persuades Baharat to ride the platform with him in an attempt to persuade the other prisoners to ration their food. According to Goring, there are roughly 250 levels in total. When Baharat inquires about what to do if they run out of food before getting to the lowest level, Goring replies that all they have to do is ride the platform back up. Baharat agrees right away even though she is first hesitant to leave a level so near the top. The 2 men start their descent the following day despite the couple on level 5 making fun of them. Goring states that since players on the first 50 levels get free food every day, they won't begin handing out food until they reach level 51. Having been on level 114 the previous month, one of the men on level 7, who had assisted Baharat in climbing a few months earlier, begs to be allowed to eat, but Goring shows no sympathy for his situation. Infuriated, Baharat bludgeons the man to death. From then on, the 2 fiercely protect the food from the inmates on the first 50 levels. They meet C. Oster, Brambang, a wheelchair-bound man who seems to have ties to Baharat, on one of the levels. Brambang assures them that dialogue and civility are more productive than force before warning them that their efforts to break the system will be in vain if the administration is unaware of what they have done. Then, as a message for the administration, he proposes that they send a beautifully prepared plate of panna cotta all the way back up to level 0. Once they get to level 51, the 2 begin to ration food and attack prisoners who try to take more than they are allowed, all while fiercely guarding the panna cotta and making sure it stays untouched. They find a man's corpse as they get closer to level 250, and Goring surmises that this is the cell in which Miharu woke up. The men are forced to acknowledge that there are more than 250 levels as the platform continues to descend. The platform continues at all of the subsequent levels. Baharat deduces that the platform will continue at that level even in the event that a cell contains no living individuals. Miharu is being attacked by 2 other prisoners as they learn from her screams. Goring and Baharat leap from the platform and attack the men with force. After Miharu is fatally stabbed, Goring laments over her body for a little while before Baharat drags him away as the platform is departing. With just the panna cotta, which is still completely unopened, as the only food left on the platform, the 2 men continue their descent despite being clearly traumatized and injured. At level 333, the platform finally stops. Baharat believes they have reached the final level and instructs Goring to get ready for the upward ascent. At that moment, Goring spots a young child hiding beneath the bed. Before they can get back on, the platform keeps going downhill after they exit it. Baharat is still holding the panna cotta, and Goring tells him to throw it back onto the platform, but he refuses. The two men notice that there has been no change in the room's temperature as the platform moves farther and farther away from them. When the girl cautiously emerges from beneath the bed, Goring notices that she resembles Maharu a lot and that the son Maharu had been searching for is actually her daughter. They feed her the panna cotta despite their reluctance before collapsing. In a subsequent dream, Goring is greeted by Trimagasi, who praises him for his courage in squandering the food up until level 6 and inquires as to whether he intends to consume Baharat. After that, he has a hallucination in which Imogiri informs him that Ramesses too is the message. Baharat then wakes him up by telling him that the girl is the message. When he looks to the platform and sees the girl sleeping soundly on top of it, he confirms that she is the message before suddenly waking up and realizing that the entire exchange was a dream. He learns that the real Baharat passed away due to wounds. When he discovers Miharu's daughter dozing off in one of the beds, he wakes her up and carries her to the platform. When the platform eventually reaches the lowest level, Trimagasi's apparition approaches him once more and begs him to get off and go with him. When Goring first refuses, claiming he must ride the platform back up to level 0, Trimagasi informs him that this is not necessary because he is not the message. In response, Goring claims to be the bearer, to which Trimagasi replies, "The message requires no bearer." Goring realizes Trimagasi is correct, so he exits the platform, and the two of them leave together, watching the sleeping girl climb.